Food and eating, incredibly important for people with depression. Eating the wrong foods will exacerbate my tendency to be in depression because it takes away my energy. So I don't have enough energy to pull away from those depressive thoughts. And at a certain point, there's a threshold where if your energy is below that threshold, the thoughts win and you're subconsciously in the depression, and it's much harder to break out of that. Maintaining the energy is critical. Food plays a huge role in that. Fast food. I love the taste of McDonald's. I grew up on Whoppers at Burger King. And I'll tell you that if I go to McDonald's and I have a Big Mac, which I love, with all that delicious sauce, and then especially if I eat the French fries along with that, and if I had some of a soda too, but even just the Big Mac and a medium French fries, my energy level, and I'll feel it within the 45 minutes of eating that, is going to go much, much lower. And for the rest of the day and into the next morning, my energy is going to be much lower. You need to feel this for yourself. Don't take my word for it. Everybody's body is different. Everybody's body is capable of digesting different things. Of course, there are some similarities, some tendencies, right? So go out, go to Burger King or Wendy's, whatever fast food place there is near you, and have a Big Mac, a couple of Big Macs, however much you can eat, as many French fries and sodas as you can drink, and then pay attention as to how awake you feel, how effective you are at work, how much concentration you have after that, and just how you feel. Because I feel quite heavy. I might have a stomach ache. I really just might not feel that good after eating that kind of food, even though it tastes so good. And I wish that wasn't the case, but that's true in my experience, and you're going to have to find out in your experience if that's true for you. And if it just so happens that you go to McDonald's and you eat all of that, and your energy skyrockets, and you're able to run around and do all these things, and it lifts your mood, and your mood stays lifted for hours, then you may have found the perfect food for you. And I hope that's the case, but it just really may not be. So please go out and pay attention to yourself and see how you feel when you're eating different kinds of food. And I'm just going to tell you what's true for me, and I have heard it's true for other people. And in the books that I've read, they've recommended some of these things. And I've tried all kinds of different diets, really interesting diets, even a pranic diet where you completely try to get off food and try to fast, and that has actually worked to some extent. It's fascinating. I'm going to talk through some of the more general things that you can try and feel for yourself how your body responds. Don't take anybody else's word for it, please. Some people do well with meat and some people don't. And there's nothing wrong with eating meat if that's sustaining you and providing the nutrients that you need. You need to feel it for yourself, feel it in your heart, what's right for you. And different things will be right for different people at different times. And don't let anybody else tell you it's not that way. It is. So some of the things that you can try, that you can experiment with and see if it helps your energy, if it helps your mood, if it helps you have enough energy to deal with the depression and deploy the thought pattern dissolve method and the meditation practice. You can try a raw foods diet and see how that works for you. Raw foods, like carrots, like fresh tomatoes, cucumbers, things that aren't cooked. They're known to have more energy. They're more alive. And you can try this either by itself and just test it out for a day or two, right? There's no need to be so extreme here and do things like I've done, going for an entire year just on raw, organic, vegan. Okay, that's something I did. You don't have to do that. You can try it for a day, a couple days, see how it is. You can try one meal raw in the morning and one regular meal later and see how you feel. See how you feel changes when you eat that second meal that's different. One thing that I've tried is liquid food. Found that if I blended something, even blended something that was cooked, so let's say instead of a pasta with vegetables, I put a little water and I blend it in it, I make a soup. Maybe if you're like me with a semi-Indian palate, all the time put a little curry in there, put a little salt in there, make a nice savory soup. There's something about blending it and making it a liquid that it goes down faster and it takes a lot less energy to break down the food. Now, that doesn't mean I'm doing this all the time. I have done liquid diets. And I know other people that advocate a liquid diet because it provides more energy. It was really interesting for me, again, in my personal experience, my personal experiments, just blending something that you could eat, not blended, even something that's cooked, made a huge difference. I was amazed. I didn't feel as much heaviness in my stomach. I had a lot more energy. And it's because it's just easier to digest. Your body doesn't have to break it down, and those enzymes and those digestive fluids just can move so much easier through that mixture. When you eat something and it's not thoroughly chewed, and it's impossible to really grind everything as fine as a blender with your teeth anyway, the digestive juices don't penetrate all of that, and they don't penetrate it as easily. And I know this is pretty disgusting, but it's something that I've done because I've been curious. And especially being in India, where at the toilets they have these sprayers that are amazing for cleaning your posterior area after you poop. I have sprayed down the poop with the sprayer. And what's really interesting is below that layer that's kind of smooth and thin, if you spray it a little bit, that comes off. What's there, you can actually see what you've eaten. Those pieces that kind of go down after you've chewed, half chewed, whatever you've done in your mouth, it's not like they break down further than that. I was shocked to see that. I've been eating tangerines when I was at this yoga center, Isha, Tamil Nadu, India. Basically, I could make out the shells of that tangerine were there, right? Not the outer shell, but the inner pieces holding the sections of those tangerines were there intact in the poop. And that's similar for different vegetables, pieces of vegetables. So this stuff doesn't break down. I always thought, yeah, like you eat it, it like comes out in this smooth poop, like, all right, it's all broken down, all completely digested. Not that case. Not that case, my friends. So if you try something like as simple as putting food in a blender for 2 minutes, you'd be amazed at how much easier that stuff is to digest. I was shocked. Other diets that you can try. There are so many varieties to the vegetarian diet, and it depends on how your body is going to deal with it. I've also found it's also been quite interesting, and something I wouldn't have thought growing up, that there can be a certain resonance with different animal meats and emotions. And in depression, I was really interested to see, again, in my own experimentation, and you can try it yourself, but I noticed that eating some types of meat, and in my case, I found that particularly true with more with pork, but a little bit with beef, that I sort of felt that sadness more, like some of those sad feelings in my chest. I felt that more after eating that type of meat. And I started to wonder if that was true, what some religions such as Hindus and Buddhists say, that kind of those emotions, while the animal was alive, while the animal was dying, while it was in fear, some of that is stored, perhaps even in the chemicals that are present in that meat. So there could be a chemical, biological basis for these theories. And then you're ingesting some of those chemicals. So there could be a spiritual essence there, or it could be as simple as just the chemicals that they produce in their body due to that fear. And we all know that different chemicals are produced, hormones are produced if you're in states of fear. as well as depression. And then you're eating that, it could have an influence. Play around. Try it for you. And as much as I like eating bacon and think it's one of the tastiest things that I've ever found, and spent a lot of time in middle school, even though I'm Jewish, once I started tasting that bacon and couldn't get enough of it, having crispy bacon sandwiches with hash browns and tomato every day, right? I have personally found that that eating that can exacerbate some of these depressive moods. Try it for yourself. It really may not be true for you. It may really depend on your how you deal with that type of food and how you relate to it and how you think about it, right? Just some things you can try. You can try avoiding certain types of meat. You can try avoiding red meat. You could try avoiding chicken. Generally, something like fish is easier to digest, but you can try avoiding fish as well. Milk is something that's very interesting. And when I was studying under Satguru at Isha Yoga Center in Coimbatore, when we were preparing for his most demanding process, we had a 40-day period where we weren't allowed to have any milk. And that's something I had never done before. The reason why was because it makes you less flexible. And in this process, we're going to have 7 days in silence trying to meditate in these very rigid postures with these cross-legged positions. And there'd just be so much leg pain if you had that inflexibility and the inflammation in the muscles that comes from having milk. And I was shocked. I couldn't believe it. I always grew up having milk, but I found that it made a significant difference cutting out milk. Now, right now, I am having milk, and I do find that it has a sustaining nutritional benefit. But if I'm trying to do things with flexibility, or I'm trying to work on certain things, cutting out milk is something that I considered. Now, don't go overboard like I did, right? Again, my personality is very, I really tend to dive in and go all the way with things. Sometimes it works, sometimes it has adverse consequences. Don't do what I did and just go off milk for a year and a half. When I tried to come back on milk, I didn't have those enzymes anymore. It was really hard for me to build up any tolerance to milk. I didn't know if I'd be able to drink milk again or have cheese again. So you can have a little bit of milk. You could have a teaspoon of milk every week, every couple of weeks. Keep your enzymes there, right? But you may want to try leaving milk and see how that is for you. Gluten, wheat. There are some people that have issues with gluten, and when they stop eating breads that contain gluten or pastas that contain gluten, they feel a whole lot better. The type of wheat we have now is very different than the type of wheat we had thousands of years ago. It's been modified, it's been bred, and it's different. The grains are a vastly different size. They used to be much bigger than they are now. And the type of gluten and the makeup of that gluten is actually very different. And you may find that if you went back to some of these older grains, and if you go to specialty shops, you can find those older grains and have those ancient grain wheats, like Corzan wheat. And you can try it, and you may find that your body processes that differently. So some people will find, if they stop having bread or pasta, that they feel better. And I've met plenty of people like that. I personally am not one of them. So if I'm eating bread, if I'm eating regular pasta, my body is generally okay with that. I don't have those effects, but I've met so many people who, when they either cut out bread or they switch to quinoa, rice, if they are eating other grains, there's so many other grains, you just have to look for them. Rye, they feel a whole lot of difference. So, what are the things you can try? Cutting out fast food, having raw foods and vegetables. Um, I had some fantastic times on raw foods: avocado, virgin olive oil. Um, One other very interesting thing that I did that I have to tell you about, because there's so many benefits, was keto. And I know some people knock keto. They say that it has some adverse effects. Maybe it's bad for the heart. And, I was on keto for about a year. Getting into keto was the hardest part because it feels like you're not eating anything. It feels like something's really wrong. In keto, you're just eating fats and proteins. And I was doing it while I'm a raw organic vegan, so I was really eating a lot of oils and nuts, things like avocado. And you're not eating many or any fruits. I just have a half a banana, a few raspberries. But you get this long burning energy. I was able to eat just once a day, feel great the rest of the time. Simplifies things a lot, just one meal. And if you're doing it blended, it's even easier to make. So think about trying, rotate through all these different options. Raw, organic, vegan, no dairy, keto. Try them, experiment, see how you feel, see how that interacts with your mood. And you might find that you're able to give yourself a boost, give yourself more energy, more good vibes and feelings, and help us fight this depression.